Here is the power supply under test. It's a nice little Alinco DM330MV, a 32 amp unit with adjustable voltage. I've used this one for a couple years now and it has worked well. Where this one makes it easy for testing of switcher interference is that it has what they call a noise offset, which will vary the frequency of the switcher by adjusting the knob. This eliminates having to turn the supply on and off in order to observe an interfering signal go away or come back. Here's the screen we'll be watching. Right now this is showing around 350 kHz to just above 500 kHz. The flex radio does not transmit at these frequencies, so the antenna isn't tuned. We rotate the noise offset control back and forth. We can see some spikes moving back and forth, and the waterfall also shows them. It's pretty clear that if you're working in this range, the switcher power supply will be interfering with your reception. You of course have the option of moving the noise offset knob. Here's an expanded view showing much the same. Moving on to the 160 meter band, we are looking at around 1.8 to 1.96 megahertz. Luckily, it was a relatively quiet day with little thunderstorm activity. Here we are going to have people have to accept my veracity as I am adjusting the noise offset knob. I'm not seeing anything I can blame on the switcher. Here is the expanded view showing much the same as the wide view. Here we have much of the 75 and 80 meter band as I can cram into one screen. That would be around 3.54 megahertz to around 4 megahertz. Once again, you'll have to accept or not that I am adjusting the noise offset control. Not much to see here. The expanded view shows much the same. Now we move to 40 meters. Typical daytime activity going on, noise floor jumping around a little bit. This is pretty typical for summer daytime on 40 meters, and there's no switching power supply interference. Here's 40 meters expanded. Looks like a little digital activity to the left, but still no switcher interference. Here's 30 meters. I elected to show just this view because it's a pretty narrow band to begin with. Nothing to see from the switcher. "20 meters. This shows from 13.990 to 14.390 megahertz. Once again, nothing from the switcher. Here is 20 meters expanded. Still nothing to see. At this point, I decided that there wasn't much point to work my way up the bands anymore, so I ended the experiment. I'll also know that this was not a rigidly controlled experiment, but more like what a typical amateur might experience in daily operations. I've concluded that this switching supply would indeed have some issues if an operator was using the experimental bands below 500 kilohertz. However, the risk of noise is minimal on the frequencies that amateur operators typically operate. The results do not speak for all switching power supplies, but I would personally consider the Alinco supply under test to be perfectly adequate for most all amateur radio operations. If there's enough interest, I can produce a more tightly controlled test of the same supply. Thanks and good propagation to all.